Good morning, Nick Appleyard here, CEO and President of TriStar Gold, and I will be taking you through our deck today. We'll be making some forward-looking statements because I want to give you some guidance on where I believe we're going and where we're attempting to head for the rest of this year. So please, take caution that forward-looking statements can carry a certain amount of risk with them, so do read the disclaimer. So what's happening on site right now? As we speak, we are completing a PFS on Esperança South on one corner of the project. We have completed the infill drilling. We've completed the metallurgical studies. We're now getting into the phase where we're going to be doing the resource estimation, mining engineering, plant design, and all of that work. And that will be due late in summer. In parallel with that, we're doing all the permitting work that's required, the baseline studies, the hydrology, the sociology, caving, climatology. It's a huge body of work that goes into permitting a project and getting it ready and de-risking it, which is the critical thing from an investor point of view. That's all taking place right now. And then the third arrow in our quiver, so to speak, is the exploration beyond Esperança South, beyond the pre-FS is happening. We have a 20,000 meter program scheduled for this year. We've started already, done a couple of thousand meters, but most of it is still to come. So looking ahead, what can we expect? We will have the resource estimate, actually came out a couple of weeks ago. We now have 1.5 million ounces of indicated. Our target was to get to 1.3 million with this drill program, and we've overshot a little bit, which is always a good thing. And we still have another 15 or so, 18 drill holes at the lab that we're waiting for right now, which will tweak that a little bit more, won't change it drastically, but it'll tweak a little bit further. So the resource estimate is done. The PFS will come out in late summer, but then in parallel with that, and from now moving forward, there'll be a lot of exploration results coming out, and these were targeting shallow conglomerate, open pit targets, deeper, remobilized high-grade targets. We're using AI to do these. I won't talk about that much in this presentation, but if people do want to hear about our use of AI, feel free to reach out and ask me at any time. And obviously, we'll have updates on permitting. Nothing just to point out on this slide here. Our work internally has shown us that companies or projects in countries like Brazil on a conceptual study like a PEA trade at 0.1 to 0.2 times NAV. Once you start getting to PFS level, it gets around 0.5 times NAV. And once you get to feasibility level and above, it's like 1 times NAV. It makes perfect sense. You're de-risking it. You're getting closer to the real economics of the project rather than just conceptual. This is the sort of re-rating we're looking at now over the next few months. So to pick the PFS and then towards FS after that, from 0.1 to 0.2 up to a half, up to 1. So there's a massive re-rating just on the feasibility study side of this alone. So this is what the company looks like. Mostly factual information that you can check out for yourselves, but I think the things I'd like to point out, we're well funded, we have a good cash position. For those people who do know the company a little bit, they'll have seen some new directors join, we're changing it over. I always believe that the board should reflect where you're going, not where you're at. So we're trying to set a board up here for a bigger company. With that in mind, Eric Zanschab, the ex-head analyst of Canaccord, joined the board in December. Jessica van den Akker, a very brilliant accounting, auditing professional, joined the board in January. And again, Jessica's someone we're going to need right now. We can get by, but next stage, you need that expertise on the board, and Jessica brings, as an ex-auditor, a really, really good control of the audit committee for us. And then last but not least, Mark Isto joined the board recently. Mark is the Chief Operating Officer of Royal Gold and is a mining engineer by training and has developed and run some of the largest open cut mining operations in North America. So he brings a wealth of experience. And we have good analyst coverage there with Brock and Don as well. So the project is Castelo de Sonhos, or Castle of Dreams. It's a paleoplacer, which means it's a sedimentary deposit that was buried 2 billion years ago. There are similar deposits around the world like Jacobina and Tarkwa, both highly profitable. Jacobina is with Yamana in Brazil, Tarkwa is with Goldfields in Ghana. So that's the geology, the type of deposit, highly profitable in other places. We know that can work. Things that we saw that before me and my team invested our money for the management takeover, close to infrastructure. You can see the highway running up to the project. There's power, there's highway access, there's water, there's labor force. It's an agricultural country. It's not pristine environment. It's simple mining, shallow surface mineralization, simple metallurgy, 97, 98% gold recovery, and environmentally clean. ESG is important to all of us these days, and there are no sulfides in this, so it's a very, very clean deposit. So that's always important. So there you got the right location and you got a good property to develop. And the development has been going. I said it's simple, and it really is. This has just been very, very predictable in its growth. And, we've grown the resource by 7 or 8 times in the last 3 or 4 years. The PEA came out with a conceptual post-tax IRR 43%. Royal Gold recognized the value, came in and funded us for the PFS. It's all looking good, and there's still a lot to do. This project is still very young in its life cycle. So where is it? We're in the southern border of Pará State. You can also see there our formal mineral resource statement, 1.5 million ounces at 1.2 grams a ton and 700,000 ounces inferred at 1 gram a ton. You can also see how the project has grown. It's just, and I think it's going to keep growing. It is still at a very early stage in the life cycle of a project. You saw where we were within Brazil there, but I sort of point out this. Last week, Kitco published the largest gold mines in South America by production for 2020. Even I was quite surprised to see the largest one, Paracatu in Brazil. Number 4, Cuiabá, Brazil. Number 6, Salobo, Brazil. So, we hear a little bit about Brazil, and, there you go. 3 of the largest out of the 10 largest producers of gold in South America were all in Brazil. So let's move on to the next one, shall we? PEA we published in 2018, running at $1,250 gold. You can see, as I said, the IRR post-tax 43%. Manageable capex, all-in sustaining under $700 an ounce. Good leverage to the gold price. That was really these economics, and obviously their own due diligence is what got Royal Gold excited and into the company. They paid us $8 million US and said, take that study, turn it into a pre-feasibility study. So that's what we've agreed to do. And this is what we're doing. We're trying to keep basically the same thing. We're working on just Esperança South, or predominantly Esperança South. We're going to keep around the same 8,250 tons a day, which is about 3 million tons a year. Processing, metallurgical recovery will probably actually sneak up because we've done more test work and we've got a better handle on it. It's gone from 95 to 97, 98%. Metal price, obviously $1,250. We haven't said it yet, but it's probably going to be around $1,500. Exchange rate, importantly, the exchange rates in Brazil are important. We ran at 3.8 to 1 before. We're looking at 5.5 to 1 now. So that has a big impact on costs, both OPEX and CAPEX. So, we are expecting similar scale, similar grades, better prices going into it. We're very excited to see what this PFS will give us when we publish it later this year. Just for the geologists out there, this is sort of what it looks like. Most of Esperança South has a gentle 15-20 degree dip into the middle of the plateau. You can see very consistent grades in here, and in a lot of zones we end up with 2 parallel reefs of mineralization. And what is important, I mentioned earlier, the AI, all the geology, you see the interpretation in the stratigraphy here in the different colors of gray at the bottom, pinks up to the yellows. It's come from an AI interpretation. It's been fascinating and it's really been helpful. So as I said, I can speak to people about that outside of this presentation. Then we've talked about the exploration, like the third arrow in the quiver. You can see here the little plan. Esperança South is predominantly the core of the feasibility study. The red dots on here are showing areas that we targeted for drilling. It's going to get tweaked and changed, obviously, a bit, but there's some extending Esperança South, which you'd consider the incremental growth, the highest probability of success because you're stepping out from known mineralization, as well as same thing in Esperança, growing Esperança East. The newer zones, Arraias, Pedfer, Tocaronça, all conglomerates, outcropping, generally some workings in the area, gold and soil anomalies through their chip samples in the surface. So we know the conglomerates there, we know there's golds there. We're going to drill it and see what sort of grades we're going to get there. And again, but the target there is shallow open pit conglomerate targets. What we show here is Mode and Buriti are deep remobilized targets. This is where maybe the conglomerates at depth intercept a large intrusion granitic intrusive body. And if that happens, gold has to go somewhere. If it gets remobilized, redeposited in a thinner band at a higher grade, you could have quite a large underground target. That's what we have. We have about 20,000 meters of drilling to go, and those results will be coming out through the year. Just on the CDS Deeps target, which is what we call the remobilized, this is just an example of what we've seen, what has made us target this. Here you can see the red circle is around a target, some intersection that was on a granitic dike. It's not part of the paleoplacer deposited gold. You can see the grades are significantly higher than everything we see in the paleoplacer. We're getting, 7 grams a ton over 8 meters, or I think it's actually 12 grams a ton over 3 meters in this intersection as well. But this sort of small dike, we want to know what happens when this paleoplacer is intruded by the large granitic ore body at depth. That's the target. It might be spotty, it might not be there at all, it might be huge. We just don't know. It's exciting. We'll wait and see. But we will be drilling it fairly soon. That's all. It's a very simple story, a very simple project, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. You can always reach us at info@tristargold.com or at our office phone number shown on the screen there. Thank you very much.